Hello, welcome back to Book Talk. You've made it to this third episode and you're amazing, you're awesome, because I don't find myself entertaining at all. As much as I try to make this entertaining, it's very hard once you're in front of a camera, especially on the topic of books, because I try to be real with myself. Nobody cares about books, but I feel like I just have an opinion and I just like to talk. Anyway, today I have another book. It's called Hidden History by Jeffries. It's an expose of modern crimes, conspiracies, and cover-ups in American politics. This is the cover. I got this from Amazon. I don't know if I'll leave a link or not, but just Google Hidden History Jeffries. It'll come right up. Shout out to Cat Dad. He's a creator that I found on TikTok, and he was like, yo, I'm reading this book. You guys should read it. I looked it up. I started reading it, and now I'm here. I try to start with a little background on the author. So the author is Jeffries. And Jeffries, he began researching the JFK assassination as a teenage volunteer with Mark Lane's Citizens Committee of Inquiry in the mid-70s. This committee, I found a lot on this committee, okay? So what this committee was kind of associated with was the Citizens Commission of Inquiry on U.S. war crimes in Vietnam. This was founded in New York. This group or committee was founded by Ralph Schoenman, I believe that's how you say it. It was founded by Ralph in 1969 to document American atrocities throughout Indochina. The formation of the organization was prompted by the disclosure of the My Lai massacre. So this group was the first to bring kind of public attention to the testimony of the returned soldiers from these atrocities, the people that participated. What I did not know was that Dick Gregory, who's an African-American comedian and an activist, I didn't know he was part of this group. I've never looked into what Dick Gregory has done on the activist side in detail, so it was just interesting to find that he was involved in exposing the war crimes of Vietnam. But once again, I couldn't find anything about Donald Jeffries and his childhood history, where he went to college, where he grew up. It kind of starts off with him joining this commission, and then he becomes an author. He's still active he has a Substack, which is interesting in itself. I think he's active on Twitter. He sounds cool. He sounds like a cool guy. The way he writes his books, personally, I liked it. I like this book, and I'm happy that I'm going to get into it. So that was Donald Jeffries. He was just an activist as a young gentleman. That's about as much as I could find. I can't speak to his character much more outside of that. So a book description, once again, I got this from Amazon. Here's a quick description. So starting with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Donald Jeffries chronicles a wide variety of issues that have plagued our country's history, whether it is the assassinations of MLK and RFK, Iran-Contra, the Oklahoma City bombing, TWA Flight 800, voting fraud, or 9/11. Every major disaster or war that we witness has somehow been distorted by those who are supposed to be protecting us. My first thoughts on this cover, once I Googled it and I looked it up, I was like, oh shit, this guy's gonna talk about some stuff in here. I didn't know, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know who this white man was on the cover. I see MLK, you see the Twin Towers, and you see a plane, which I think I'm gonna assume that was JFK's plane, maybe? JFK Jr.'s? I'm not sure, honestly. There were so many planes in this book. I'm not sure whose plane that is, but yeah, after reading this, I definitely now know who this man is. It's Lee Harvey Oswald, suspected shooter of JFK, our president. That's obviously MLK. Look at it, was gonna be some interesting stuff just by seeing the cover. I'm young, you guys. This is my first expose type book that I've picked up, coming off of the young adult fiction type books, and I'm trying to delve into some actual grown-up material. I'm not that young, but anyway, kind of my first delve into some grown-up material. The ratings I gave are out of 5 categories or 5 topics. You get a point for the storyline / ending, entertaining or not. You get a point for the length and the pace. You get a point for the complexity of the book. You get a point for whether or not I would read another book by you as the author. A point as to whether or not I would recommend your book to anyone else to pick up and spend their time reading, because as we know, reading books is not a quick session. It takes a lot for somebody to go out, purchase your book, pick it up, read it, comprehend it, and have an opinion to say afterwards. I feel like they actually learned something or felt like they were entertained. People have to have one of the two, if not both, which I think people prefer to have the entertainment. I prefer to have both if possible. Learning something just doesn't cut it for me. I'll be honest, I don't want to pick up something just to learn from it. I would rather be learning and entertained at the same time. Expose at the end of the day is kind of just like gossip. It's just gossip. This is a historical gossip type of book. To get into the rating, did I like the storyline? Was it entertaining? Big fat yes. Expose provides names, it provides dates, interviews, pieces of evidence. Not too much hearsay, even though interviews are kind of hearsay, I guess, but these are witnesses that he gets his information from. For example, with like the JFK assassination. These witnesses, for example, were going out and saying like the JFK assassination that they would talk to the authorities and they would say, yeah, I saw this man in a blue shirt. And then their actual statement would come out and say that, yeah, I saw this man in a red shirt. Or sometimes their statements would come out to be able to say, oh, I didn't see anyone at all. They would come out and say that their statements had been falsified or entirely just not used at all. A lot of cases like that. So whether or not you believe people who say that they were there or not, some of them provide details of the scene. Some people provide descriptions of other people that they saw at the scene, the things they saw at the scene. I think that's more interesting versus just an author giving his end-all be-all opinion on things, using real-life people's word, not filter. Ending? What's the ending? I mean, there kind of is no ending. I don't think there is an ending. It wasn't supposed to be like a beginning to end storyline type of same time. Every book has an ending. So the book itself, it doesn't end off with an ending telling us what we should do, which I like because I personally don't like when people tell us what to do. Because they never give good suggestions. It's always like, wake up people, turn your TVs off. Like, I get it. He reminds us how dissatisfied we are with how our governments are performing, and they're supposed to be doing everything in their power to make the land a better place for everyone who inhabits it. And it seems like they're doing the opposite. And he goes over the voting fraud scheme that started in the 70s. Voting in general, we are shown inflated numbers. We are shown deflated numbers. We are shown all types of information. We don't even know if it's true or not. This reminds us the state of mind that we should be in. We should be dissatisfied with people that are lying to us and covering up everything that happens that they put in the news in front of our faces. So honestly, I applaud this author. He's amazing. I think he uses some sarcasm and he almost reminds me of John Hankey on YouTube, who also does expose. They have the same kind of personality. I think the sarcasm in here is awesome. Length and pace. This book was about 390-ish pages, but it was a quick read. Honestly, I felt like I flew through this book. And it was entertaining, though. It wasn't like it was a struggle to get through the 390 pages. It's not tiny, like the little tiniest print where you're like, oh my god, 400 pages, like I can't do this. I got through this book in maybe a week too. I think the length and the pacing, it made it a quick read. It had a lot of chapters in here, so it was broken up to give you some time to actually think about what you were just told. And the chapters are broken up into incidents, time periods. I forgot the name of what you want to call it. I don't know, whenever they're in office. Starts off with JFK. It goes into Reagan, Nixon, George H.W. Bush, George Bush, Obama, so forth, Bill Clinton. So that's how the chapters are broken up. It's very easy to categorize what you've just learned and attach it, unfortunately, to these presidents. You kind of learn from this book the opposite of what you learn in school, that these people are great people and they've done what they can. For example, the chapter about Obama is very interesting. As a black person, what I learned in my household versus what I just learned in this book, it's two different spectrums and it's two different characterizations of this man who is supposed to have been the face of black leadership in America. Since I read this book, I definitely agree with the author's description of Obama versus my family's internal opinions of Obama. The more you learn, and it's like a Pandora's box, you can't unsee it, you can't undo it, you can't unlearn it. Once you know this type of information, you cannot forget it. It's up to you whether or not you believe it, but you cannot forget it. The length and the pace, it gets another check for me because it's 400 pages, but I got through this super quick, and I honestly wish that there was more at the end. I think this book was written in like 2016, by the way, so I don't think he got to Trump and Biden. The complexity, which is the third point, was not complex at all. It was pretty straightforward. No big words like that. I don't think I had to pop out my dictionary. I did more than 3 times. So it was pretty straightforward. It was a pretty easy read. And I'm speaking from the level of an uneducated Americans. Like, I have some college education, I'm not an idiot, so it's like I can understand some complex idea. I appreciate him for keeping it simple. So he gets a 3rd point from me. Would I read another book by this author? Hell yeah, definitely. I'm actually about to buy another book by this author. I'm getting into Audibles, so I seen that they have his books on Audibles. That is my next read, is an Audible by Donald Jeffries. Next personal read. I don't want to keep this genre going. I want to switch it up. I'm definitely going to pick up another book by Donald Jeffries. If I would recommend this book to anybody, yes, I would. It's a good intro video. I would say personally to anybody who doesn't care about history like that. And I say doesn't care because I didn't care about history. I consider myself a smart kid in school. I could retain a lot of information in the moment. I don't know how deeply I could comprehend as a teenager, but now I can start to comprehend a lot smoother. This book is definitely like an intro reader's book to conspiracy history, if that's what you want to call it. Like, there's 2 shoes. There's his story, her story, and the truth somewhere in the middle, right? So we've all learned his story in school. I feel like this book is on the other end of that spectrum. Truth lies somewhere in the middle between what we learned in school and what this expose is kind of explaining. So you have to kind of use your own discernment to figure out what's true or not, or what you want to believe, because again, we don't know what's true or not, no matter how much proof you provide. Everything in this life is just up to what you believe. And I give this author a check for that. He got 5 stars, 5 out of 5 stars for this book. I think this is the first 5 out of 5 stars I've given. I have only one other book that I've ever read. I have not done a video on it yet, that I already know is 5 stars. This is now the second one. This is the second book that gets a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I recommend it. I'm gonna keep reading books by him. Good job. Kudos to Donald Jeffries. I think it's very brave to write about stuff like this. When there's real journalism, you end up dying. So I applaud anyone who has the balls to write about stuff like this and then publish it and actually make sense. So it's almost like being in an insane asylum, because we really learned a lot of things that are not true. So when you find out something that's contradictory to what you've learned, and it makes sense just a little bit. A broken clock can be right twice a day, right? So even if he wrote this whole 400-page book, maybe only 10 pages are accurate, right? So you don't know. I choose to believe what he said, but I don't care. I believe everything other than what I learned in school. That's how I keep it to myself. Everything is possible. Anything is possible. I probably won't reread it because this type of information you're not gonna forget. I'm not gonna forget who Harvey Oswald is, and that he didn't even hate JFK. Didn't even get a chance to actually speak on the stand. So there's a lot of questions left. I'm just gonna read a passage, and you guys can decide for yourselves whether or not you want to buy this book or read it. But a lot of questionable things in this world. Okay, so I'm gonna read a passage from this book. It's probably about 75% of the length of the page, and as you can see, I highlighted the crap out of the book. The portion or excerpt that I chose to read was about Black Liberation Front, or the Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. It was that type of passage. It was amazing. Anyway, here is the passage. Malcolm X's personal bodyguard, who tried to resuscitate him after he was shot, was a New York detective who'd been working undercover for 7 years. Fred Hampton, the Black Panther, who was also shot and killed by the Chicago police and the FBI, had a paid FBI informer who was also head of security for the Panthers as his personal bodyguard too. I highlighted so much, it's not even funny. Viola Liuzzo, sorry, I don't know how to say her name. She was a civil rights worker who was murdered by the KKK following the 1965 marches from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. One of the Klan members, in quotes, riding in the car from which the shots were fired was FBI informant Gary Rowe. In the 1990s, the imperial wizard of the true KKK in Texas was Robert Leslie Spence Jr. He was a longtime informant for the FBI and other agencies. Documents released in 2009 revealed that in the early 1990s, the FBI had an undercover sting operation called PatCon, which included setting up its own fictional white supremacist group. And fictional is not in quotes, but you have to question if this was fictional or not. This was classified as a Group 1 undercover operation, which by definition may involve activity by an undercover employee that is prescribed by federal, state, or local law as a felony, or that is otherwise a serious crime, as well as activities that present a significant risk of violence, risk of financial loss, or realistic potential for significant claims against the United States. George DeMurro was the ultimate FBI informant. He had admitted that he'd helped assemble bombs during the course of his work. An ex-member of John Birch Society, DeMurro infiltrated at various points the Progressive Labor Party, the Revolutionary Contingent, the U.S. Committee to Aid the National Liberation Front of South Vietnam, the Yippies, the Crazies, and the New York Young Patriots. So we can see that some of the most celebrated leaders of the counterculture movement had discernible links to the establishment that they were supposedly trying to undermine. So the 60s was crazy. The 60s brought about so many counterculture movements, left-wing, I don't even know if I'm using that right, left-wing movements, right-wing movements, for government, against government groups. And a lot of them were already infiltrated. That's the crazy thing. And knowing what I know today, they say that there are 3 times as many informants in any given neighborhood compared to the 60s today as there was 60 years ago. So there's 3 times as many informants, and it's just, it's crazy. You don't know what is what anymore. It could be a natural grown organization, or it could be a government front. Open my eyes to not only what the law can do legally and illegally. I never cared before, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't care before. These people can do illegal things in the name of infiltration. The second point is that sounds like a mercenary group. What happened to Viola Liuzzo? They rode around, driving around, shooting at black people. What do people think happens today in our communities? We think it's gangs kind of shooting at each other back and forth all day. I don't think these people have stopped. I feel like there's a mercenary group out there waiting for it to be kind of peaceful, and then they shake it up again. So you just, once again, you don't know. You don't know. We live in a crazy world, honestly, and I think we're all learning that anything and everything is possible. Knowing that anything and everything is possible. These stories are not hard to believe, and they're not far-fetched, honestly. Because once again, he's giving names, he's giving interview statements, he's giving witness reports and dates. So I applaud this author for doing what he has done. I'm not sure if he spoke directly with these interviewers, witnesses, or if he kind of gathered them from documents. Either way, I applaud him for putting it so beautifully into this book. I think it's a great book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I will definitely be reading another one. I want somebody to recommend me a book that will make me cry or something. I've never cried with a book. I feel for characters sometimes, and I don't read a lot of sad books, so I want a book that's really gonna push me there. I have yet to find one like to my knees. Books like this excite me because true journalism does exist. That's what excites me the most. Like, you think everything we see on the news and on social media, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, man, is this all to life? Is it just celebrities and false flag? It makes me laugh because you kind of realize a lot of things are manufactured. I'm not gonna take this video to say what I think is manufactured, but you have to use your own discernment to separate what is reality versus what is manufactured. I mean, you create your reality. You choose what to believe in and what not to believe in. You can find evidence for pros against every subject. You can find evidence for cons against every subject. I'm just sitting here creating my own reality. I love everything that this author laid out in this book. It was great writing. Overall, a great book. So until the next time, thanks for watching.